Have you ever walked into someone's home or workspace and, before a single word was spoken, felt something shift inside you? Maybe it was a subtle wave of calm that washed over you, or an unease you couldn't explain. We often chalk it up to lighting, decor, or even the scent of the space. But what if I told you something much deeper is at play? What if the plants in the room, the quiet living beings tucked into corners and lining windowsills, are not just decoration, but active participants in the energetic story of your life? What if they are spiritual companions? What if they are teachers? And what if by simply placing a certain plant in a certain corner of your home, you could invite in a greater sense of peace, mental clarity, and even financial abundance? Not because of magic, not because of superstition, but because of intention. Before we begin, may I gently ask a favor? If you feel supported or inspired by this channel, please consider giving this video a like, sharing it with someone you care about, or subscribing to help us reach our first 1,000 followers. Your support allows me to continue creating meaningful, mindful content, nourishing both your journey and the journeys of others, seeking quiet wisdom in a noisy world. Welcome to New Day Mindfulness, where ancient wisdom meets modern life in the most grounded, practical, and quietly transformational ways. In today's video, we're exploring a beautiful, often overlooked form of practice, the conscious arrangement of plants in your living space, not for aesthetic perfection, but for energetic alignment. You see, many of us think of mindfulness as something that only happens on the meditation cushion. But in truth, mindfulness is how you design your life. It's how you set a table. It's how you enter a room. It's how you arrange your surroundings with awareness. And just like the breath, your environment can anchor you or unground you. It can lift you up or drain your spirit. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever noticed how a certain plant, even if it's small or half-wilted, makes you feel something? A bit more hopeful, a little more focused, a little more cared for? That's not an accident. In the Buddhist tradition, nature is never just background. It is the teacher. And we are students, learning from every petal, every root, every quietly unfolding leaf. What we're about to explore together today is not just a list of lucky plants that promise riches. This is not about manifesting mansions or overnight success. This is about creating a living space that supports your journey toward balance, toward calm, toward a version of abundance that nourishes the soul as well as the wallet. Today, I'll be sharing 10 sacred green allies, plants that people across generations and cultures have trusted not only to beautify their homes, but to cultivate energy that supports prosperity, clarity, creativity, emotional protection, and yes, financial well-being. And I'll be honest with you, before I studied this, I used to ignore plants completely. I was one of those people who thought plants are just extra things to take care of. But once I started to understand how each plant carried a unique vibration, once I saw how it shifted my thoughts, my productivity, my peace, I realized they were taking care of me. It wasn't decoration, it was devotion. So in this video, we'll explore why the placement of a plant matters more than its price tag, how traditional wisdom from cultures like feng shui and Buddhist monastic design can inform how we set up our space, and how caring for plants genuinely, lovingly can change the energy of a room and of your life. Now, if you've ever felt like your space is a little off, like something stuck or stagnant, or you're just not sleeping or focusing as well as you'd like, I encourage you to stay with me to the end of this video, because I'm not just going to list plants. I'm going to share with you the deeper meanings behind them, how to use them as daily anchors for your practice, and even how to engage with them as part of your personal ritual for grounding, healing, and growth. Each of these plants is more than a container of beauty. They are invitations to be present, Yaman. They are reminders that growth doesn't happen overnight. That transformation requires both light and shadow. That prosperity is not just about accumulation, but flow. And trust me, the stories you'll hear today will shift the way you look at your own home. So let's begin our journey together. Let's meet the first of our 10 sacred green allies. 1. The orchid. Beauty as a teaching. When we consider plants as spiritual companions rather than mere decor, Few embody the silent teachings of elegance, patience, and mindful presence quite like the orchid. While to the casual observer, the orchid is simply a beautiful flowering plant with its delicate petals and exotic allure, to the mindful practitioner, it is a quiet master. In Buddhist thought, and within the greater context of meditative living, the orchid emerges as a profound symbol of inner refinement and the grace of becoming. To understand the deeper relevance of the orchid, we must begin by observing it not only with the eyes but with the heart. The orchid does not bloom in haste. It waits, it gathers, it observes the world through stillness, often sitting dormant for long periods, then, almost mysteriously, unfurling a flower of such quiet majesty that it evokes awe. This rhythm of emergence is not random, it is purposeful. And this cycle, stillness, patience, blooming, mirrors the exact path of spiritual evolution we study in Buddhist practice. The orchid has long been associated with nobility, purity, and grace in both Eastern and Western cultures. In China, for instance, the orchid is one of the four noble plants, symbolizing moral integrity and refined character. In Japanese Zen gardens, orchids are often placed in subtle, non-prominent spaces, a nod to their quiet dignity. In Buddhist practice, this inner elegance is echoed in the cultivation of simplicity and restraint. The goal is not to impress, but to express. We do not meditate to gain attention or admiration. We do so to develop clarity, compassion, and insight. The orchid is not showy, at least not in the way a wild sunflower might be. Its beauty is refined, subtle. You must come closer. You must slow down. You must pay attention. This very act of slowing down and observing is the core of mindfulness. When one sits in meditation, what appears at first to be uneventful or even boring slowly reveals layers of depth and vibrancy. Likewise, the orchid's petals, at a glance, may appear simple, but upon closer observation, they reveal intricate textures, gradients of color, and astonishing symmetry. The more mindful your gaze, the more beauty you uncover. Let's turn theory into lived experience. A student of mine, we'll call her Mara, was a mid-level executive in a fast-paced tech firm. She had been practicing mindfulness for years, but felt her clarity slipping. Despite morning meditations, she found herself reactive at work, overwhelmed by endless emails, meetings, and decisions. Something was missing. At the suggestion of her teacher, she created a dedicated meditation corner in her home. She kept it simple: a cushion, a bell, and a single orchid. The first week, she barely noticed the plant. It was just there. But after a few days of sitting in its presence, something subtle changed. She found herself looking at it more, noticing the new buds, watching its bloom cycle. She began to align her own emotional regulation with the plant's pace. It wasn't a conscious effort. It happened naturally. Within a month, Mara reported feeling more composed at work. She wasn't more productive in the traditional sense. She was more intentional. She described her decision-making as less tangled and said that when stress hit, she would visualize the orchid, not its petals, its stillness. This is the teaching power of plants, not through lecture, but through lived example. In mindfulness practice, placement is everything. Whether it's your cushion, your shrine, or your cup of tea, how and where you place things is a reflection of your mental state. It's the practice of intentional space. When placing an orchid, consider areas where decision-making occurs. Your desk, your home office, your reading corner. Why? Because the orchid encourages clarity and discernment, two vital mental faculties in Buddhist training, vijja and panya. The orchid's calming presence can also benefit your entryway, greeting guests with peace, or your altar, symbolizing the beauty of awakening. Some practitioners keep a small orchid on their dining table as a reminder to eat mindfully and savor impermanence. The key is to place it where it will be seen, not as a possession, but as a partner. Allow it to be your silent teacher. The orchid is not just a plant. It is a sacred emblem of mindfulness, patience, and inner beauty. In a world spinning with distraction, the orchid invites you to pause, to breathe, to listen, and to remember that growth, real growth, happens slowly, quietly, and often invisibly. So next time you see an orchid, Whether in a garden, a store, or your own home, don't just admire it, study it, sit with it, let it teach you how to be. 2. The ZZ plant, quiet resilience and the wealth of stillness. Inner resilience, prosperity grows in silence. The ZZ plant, with its thick, waxy, deep green leaves, doesn't boast. It doesn't bloom in color. It doesn't fill the room with scent. And yet, it thrives. In low light, in dry air, and even in neglect, it endures quietly, asking for almost nothing and giving everything it can. It is the embodiment of quiet resilience. In Buddhist thought, we are often reminded that strength isn't found in the loudest voice or the fastest growth, but in the stillness between action, in the space where patience lives. The ZZ plant reminds us of this truth. It doesn't rush, it simply grows little by little, day by day, with no performance, only presence. Much like the mind in meditation, it is sturdy, undemanding, and self-contained. True prosperity, whether emotional, spiritual, or financial, often begins like this: slow, unnoticed, rooted deep beneath the surface. Let me share a story that you might find familiar. My friend Julia is a freelance writer who works from a small apartment in a bustling city. She's creative, introverted, and highly sensitive to her surroundings. For years, she struggled with a constant sense of instability. Projects would come and go, and finances were always a source of worry. One day, while browsing a local plant shop, she stumbled on a small ZZ plant tucked on a dusty corner shelf. It wasn't much to look at, just 2 stems and a few thick leaves. But something about its simplicity spoke to her. She brought it home and placed it in the corner of her work desk, not because of any feng shui rule, but because it felt right. She gave it a name: Steady. Weeks passed, work was still unpredictable, but her energy started to shift. She found herself sitting at her desk with a little more confidence. The plant didn't change her income, but it changed her state of mind. She glanced at it before sending emails, or after a call that didn't go well. And every time, it was still there, quietly upright, solid, alive. One day she told me, "I don't know what it is. That plant doesn't bloom, doesn't do anything, but it reminds me to keep showing up." That's the power of a ZZ plant. It doesn't dazzle you, it grounds you. The ZZ plant has strong, upright stems, architectural, even bold. And yet, its behavior is entirely passive. It asks for very little light, rarely needs water, and can go weeks without care. There's a kind of masculine shape to it, but a deeply feminine way of being. In energetic terms, this is what Taoist and Buddhist balance looks like: soft on the inside, steady on the outside. For those of us juggling ambition and exhaustion, doing and being, this plant teaches integration. You don't have to choose between strength and gentleness. You can embody both, just like the ZZ. If you're working from home, consider placing a ZZ plant on the left-hand side of your desk, the receiving side, where you tend to take in information, emails, decisions. It's a quiet companion, not a focal point. If your work brings you into emotionally draining spaces, placing a ZZ plant by the door of your home can symbolically act as a reset, a buffer between the outer world and your inner sanctuary. It says, "Here we grow slowly, here we breathe." Some practitioners place a small gold coin or tie a red thread around the base of the ZZ pot, not as superstition, but as a symbolic offering of intention. The gold represents grounded abundance. The red represents vitality and direction. These are mindful rituals, not magical spells. If you don't have a wealth corner mapped out, no problem. What matters most is intention. Ask yourself, where do I need to remember that growth doesn't always need to be visible? That's where the ZZ belongs. The ZZ plant teaches in whispers, not lectures. It invites you to slow down your need for immediate results, to trust in the unseen roots of your practice, and to honor the wealth of simply staying rooted. Julia still has that plant. It's much taller now and still not flashy. She waters it once every couple weeks, sometimes less. But every time she sits down to write, it's there, reminding her that success doesn't always feel explosive. Sometimes it feels like calm, like presence, like knowing you're exactly where you need to be. So if you're navigating a season of the lady palm, guardian of stillness and subtle protection. Among the many plants known for their elegance and symbolic depth, the lady palm stands out, not with color or fragrance, but with form and presence. Its lush, fan-like leaves stretch outward like open hands, not to take but to hold space, to welcome, to guard gently. In mindfulness practice, we often talk about holding space for our breath, for our discomfort, for others. The lady palm is the physical embodiment of this idea. It doesn't demand your attention, but it changes the way a room feels. In a subtle, almost imperceptible way, it absorbs tension. It softens sharp corners, literally and energetically. It doesn't block energy like a wall. It redirects it like water meeting stone. For many in the Buddhist tradition, creating sacred boundaries is not about isolating oneself from the world, but about cultivating right conditions for practice. The lady palm does just that, not through force, but through presence. It teaches us that protection can be gentle, that shielding our inner peace doesn't require armor, but clarity. Let me tell you about someone named Aaron, a school counselor and father of two. He lives in a small home with a lot of movement, children running, visitors coming and going, and little space to truly retreat. Meditation for him was often stolen in 10-minute windows, usually on the floor of his bedroom. After attending a mindfulness retreat, Aaron returned home with a simple intention: to create a clearer energetic line between the busyness of his household and his need for stillness. But he didn't have an extra room, so he did one small thing. He bought a lady palm. He placed it just inside the threshold of his bedroom, not to block the doorway, but to frame it. The moment he stepped past it, he mentally acknowledged the shift. Now I am entering sacred space. Now I am allowed to breathe differently. He didn't ask his family to be quieter. He didn't post rules. He just created a ritual with a plant. Over time, his children began to notice. They didn't always understand, but they respected it. And Aaron, he said something remarkable. It's like that palm taught me to take myself seriously without being rigid. This is the silent power of the lady palm. It gives form to intention. In Buddhist teachings, we often return to the four immeasurables: loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. What's not often discussed is that these beautiful qualities also require boundaries. You cannot extend compassion to others endlessly without anchoring yourself. You cannot remain equanimous without knowing when to pause and replenish. The lady palm is a physical symbol of that principle. It says you can be soft and strong at once. You can welcome and protect at the same time. You can be deeply kind and still know where your center is. Its wide-spreading leaves create a natural barrier to harsh energy without rejecting or pushing away. Just as a mindful practitioner lets noise pass through without clinging, the lady palm filters tension with grace. The ideal placement for a lady palm is near a transition point, a doorway, hallway, or between spaces where you move from public to private, from external to internal. It is a plant that flourishes in partial light and is happy to grow slowly, mirroring the pace of intentional living. One beautiful practice is to place a lady palm just outside your meditation area, even if it's a corner of your room. Not to create separation, but to mark transition, to say, this is where I shift inward. Some people place it near their front door as a filter, letting in welcome energy and gently transforming the rest. In Eastern spatial traditions, plants by the entrance are not just decorative, they are protectors, gatekeepers of energy. And the lady palm, with its round, nurturing shape, offers protection without the edge of defense. If you work in a high-stress environment, placing a lady palm behind your seat or near your desk can serve as an energetic backdrop, absorbing distraction, reminding you to breathe, and encouraging you to move through your tasks with grace instead of urgency. Not all protection looks like defense. Some of it looks like peace. The lady palm teaches us that boundaries can be beautiful, that grace can be grounding, that you don't need walls to create stillness. You need intention and presence. Whether you live alone or with many others, Whether your space is noisy or calm, the lady palm offers you a gentle practice to make room for your own stillness, to define a sacred zone, not with rules but with rhythm, with green leaves, soft shadows, and the quiet assurance that peace doesn't have to shout to be heard. So if you've been craving more balance, more clarity, and a little more room to just be, the lady palm may be calling you. Place it where the world fades and your breath begins. Shire, the rubber tree. The wisdom of enough and the strength of stillness. The rubber tree, with its broad, upright leaves and solid trunk, carries a presence that is unmistakable. Even in a room filled with brighter, more decorative plants, it stands tall, firm, and quietly commanding, like someone who doesn't need to speak loudly to be heard. In mindfulness practice, we often talk about grounding, the ability to remain centered, calm, and rooted in the present moment, no matter how chaotic life becomes. The rubber tree embodies this concept perfectly. Its glossy, thick leaves store water and withstand dryness, reminding us of a deep truth. You don't need to constantly consume or strive to remain nourished. You simply need to hold your center. In Buddhist thought, this mirrors the teaching of Santuti, contentment, to be satisfied with what is here, to recognize enoughness not as limitation, but as liberation. While the world chases more, the rubber tree quietly declares, "This is sufficient," and that in itself is powerful. Let's meet Nina, a young woman working in corporate marketing. Her days were long, her phone never stopped pinging, and even her free time was filled with a pressure to optimize every moment, from journaling routines to side hustles. Even her meditation practice, she admitted, started to feel like another thing on her to-do list. One weekend, burnt out and overwhelmed, she visited a local nursery. She wasn't looking for anything in particular, but in the far corner of the greenhouse stood a tall rubber tree, slightly dusty but undeniably majestic. Something about its quiet strength resonated with her. She brought it home and placed it beside her sofa, in a corner she'd barely noticed before. Over the next few weeks, she started sitting beside it in the evenings. No phone, no podcast, no goal. Just sitting. She called it her enough corner. She didn't use the plant to manifest wealth. She used it to remember that her worth wasn't tied to output. That rest didn't need justification. That being, not doing, was a valid way to live. This is what the rubber tree can teach us. To stop pushing, to start settling, not into mediocrity, but into presence. On a symbolic level, the rubber tree represents more than emotional grounding. It speaks to the idea of wealth preservation. Its upright stature and thick foliage suggest not fleeting gain, but sustained security. In Eastern traditions, this makes it a favored plant in workspaces, banks, and homes where people seek not just to earn, but to maintain prosperity. In Buddhist economics, a concept that emphasizes right livelihood, ethical stewardship, and the wise use of resources, the rubber tree becomes a visual reminder of sustainable success. The goal is not reckless abundance, but thoughtful stability. Not accumulation for ego, but preservation for peace. If you are someone who often makes impulsive decisions, financial or emotional, having a rubber tree nearby can serve as a pause button, a visual cue to ask, is this aligned with my values? Is this enough? Because of its stature and form, the rubber tree makes a statement, even when it stands silently in a corner. It's best placed in areas where decisions are made and energy tends to become scattered. Think home offices, study corners, or the edges of a meditation space. If you're someone who works with numbers, finances, spreadsheets, investments, this plant can become a kind of silent accountability partner. It encourages discernment, not by warning or judgment, but by reminding you of the peace that comes from making wise, sustainable choices. You might also consider placing a rubber tree near the southeast corner of your home, often associated with wealth, energy, and feng shui. But more than the direction, let your own intuition guide you. Ask yourself, where do I need more grounding? Where do I tend to spin out of control? That's the space the rubber tree is asking to inhabit. In a culture that constantly urges us to expand, to upgrade, to chase more, the rubber tree offers a sacred alternative. to root down, to rise slowly, to be sustained by what is already here. It doesn't bloom or trail or perform. It stands, quiet, confident, whole. Let it be a reminder that strength isn't always about moving forward. Sometimes it's about staying steady. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stay. So if you're longing for more stability in your finances, your emotions, your schedule, consider inviting a rubber tree into your space, not as a magic symbol, but as a grounded friend, a visual mantra whispering, "You are already enough." 5. The money plant. Interconnection, flow, and abundance in motion. The money plant, also known as pothos or devil's ivy, is often praised for its cascading vines and vibrant green leaves. But beyond its visual appeal lies something much deeper. This plant teaches us about the nature of abundance, not as something to hoard, but something to let flow. In Buddhist thought, wealth is not merely a material concept. It is energy. It is movement. It is dana, the practice of giving, circulating, and trusting the return. The money plant is rarely stiff or upright. It spills, it trails, it reaches. It moves with ease in any direction, often curling toward the nearest source of light. In doing so, it reminds us that abundance isn't about holding tightly. It's about trusting the natural current of life. Just as water flows when it's unblocked, prosperity, whether financial, creative, or relational, tends to move when we release resistance. In this way, the money plant becomes more than a lucky charm. It is a living, growing invitation to align our lives with generosity, reciprocity, and trust in process. Let me tell you about Jay, a young woman who had just moved into her first apartment after leaving a long-term relationship and changing careers. Everything felt uncertain. Her job was new, her budget was tight, and emotionally she felt raw. But she also felt free for the first time in years. On a whim, she bought a small money plant from a street vendor, just a few trailing vines in a glass jar. She placed it on her kitchen windowsill, not because she believed in plant magic, but because she wanted something alive to grow with her. At first, nothing happened, but then slowly, as she tended to it each morning, wiping dust off the leaves, rotating it toward the sun, something within her began to change too. She began to feel rooted little by little. Her career path became clearer. She started receiving unexpected opportunities. An old friend recommended her for a freelance job. A client referred her without being asked. It wasn't dramatic, but it was steady. When asked what shifted, Jay said, "That plant reminded me that I don't have to rush, that good things come when I keep flowing." This is the deeper wisdom of the money plant. It reflects our life back to us, not in stability or stillness, but in movement. In Buddhist teaching, dana is the first of the 10 perfections. It means generosity, but also open-handedness, being willing to give without clinging and to receive without fear. The money plant embodies this spirit physically. As its vines grow, it seeks space. It never grows in straight lines. It curves, adapts, meanders. It teaches us that prosperity is a relational force, not an individual possession. Its rapid growth is also a quiet metaphor for karma. The care you give it, light, water, presence, is often mirrored back in lush, abundant leaves. Likewise, the care we offer to others, to our work, to our daily choices, returns to us in ways we cannot predict. When we feel stuck financially or emotionally, we often try to force solutions. But the money plant teaches us to instead ask, where am I blocking the flow? Where am I clinging too tightly? What part of me needs to soften, to open, to reach again? Because the money plant trails rather than climbs, it thrives in hanging baskets, shelves, and any space where its vines can move freely. In energetic terms, it's best placed near entrances, windows, or corners where energy may stagnate. In feng shui, it's often placed in the southeast corner of a space to encourage prosperity. But from a mindfulness perspective, the best place is wherever you want to encourage openness and circulation. Try placing it by your home's entrance, so the first thing you see upon entering is a reminder of organic, natural growth. Or in your workspace, especially where creative ideas or financial planning take place. It can soften the energy and invite new ideas. One beautiful practice is to water your money plant with intention. As you pour water into the soil, silently recite a phrase of offering. May abundance flow freely, or may I trust in what is unfolding. These small acts, repeated with presence, become rituals of alignment. The money plant is not about superstition, it's about trust. It's about surrendering control without losing direction. It's about remembering that abundance isn't a destination. It's a way of relating to life. With its reaching vines and generous spirit, the money plant invites us to reflect. Are we allowing our gifts to circulate? Are we open to receive? Are we willing to grow toward the light, even when we don't know exactly where it leads? If you're navigating a transition, longing to feel more connected to your purpose or prosperity, or simply want to introduce a bit more movement into your life, start with this humble, generous plant. Let it spill over your shelf. Let it remind you to breathe, to give, and to grow without fear. 6. The Monstera, expansion, boldness, in the beauty of imperfection. The Monstera plant, often affectionately called the Swiss cheese plant because of its distinctively split leaves, is one of the most visually striking houseplants. But beyond its dramatic appearance lies a profound spiritual lesson. True growth often comes through what appears broken, unusual, or incomplete. In a world that idolizes symmetry and perfection, the Monstera challenges us with its wild, fenestrated leaves. Each split a story, each whole a reminder that wholeness can come in unexpected forms. It doesn't conform, it expands. It says, let me grow the way I'm meant to, not the way you expect. In Buddhist teachings, there's a deep reverence for the unconventional path. The lotus, after all, grows in the mud. Likewise, the Monstera thrives when given freedom, room to climb, to reach, to evolve in its own unique shape. It teaches us that the journey toward expansion is not a linear path. It's messy, it splits, it takes time, and that's where the beauty lives. Let me introduce you to Luis, a 47-year-old former architect who left his profession after a personal loss and found himself completely uncertain about the next step. He moved into a smaller space, started working part-time at a community center, and was quietly grieving the life he thought he was supposed to have. During that transition, he was gifted a small Monstera by a friend who said, "This one's a little odd, but I think you will understand it." Luis placed it on a shelf near a sunlit corner. For weeks, he didn't do much with it, just watered it occasionally. But one morning, he noticed a new leaf beginning to unfold. At first, it was tightly coiled, and as it opened over the next few days, it revealed the same signature slits and holes. Something clicked. He thought, even with holes, this leaf is whole. Even incomplete, it's beautiful. From that moment on, the Monstera became more than a plant. It became a reflection. Luis started journaling again. He applied for a design mentorship program. He even began to feel at peace with his detour from architecture. Not because he had a new plan, but because he finally accepted that his path didn't need to look perfect to be meaningful. Monstera energy is expansive. It doesn't hold back. Once rooted, it reaches upward and outward, often latching onto nearby supports to keep climbing. In this way, it teaches us a powerful lesson. You don't have to do everything alone. Growth isn't about isolation. It's about knowing where to lean. In spiritual practice, this is Sangha, the supportive community that helps us stay grounded as we rise. And just like the Monstera grows toward light, we too are pulled toward clarity, purpose, and transformation. But clarity doesn't mean control. Sometimes we grow in odd directions. Sometimes our leaves split open in ways that feel strange or vulnerable. But each opening, each gap, is a space where light comes through. In meditation, we often notice the mind's imperfections, scattered thoughts, emotional noise, forgotten intentions. But instead of resisting them, we're taught to observe them gently, with curiosity. Just like the Monstera's leaves, our inner landscapes are beautiful, not because they are flawless, but because they are real. Due to its need for space and indirect light, the Monstera does well in corners where you'd like to invite bold energy, a creative studio, a reading nook, or any room where you're planting new seeds, literally or metaphorically. In your home office, it can serve as a creative muse, reminding you to stay flexible and daring. In a meditation area, it can be a symbol of spiritual evolution, how our practice, like the plant, doesn't need to look perfect to be powerful. If you're navigating a transition, changing careers, healing from loss, or rediscovering who you are, placing a Monstera in your personal space can be a daily affirmation. It's okay to grow differently. It's okay not to be finished yet. You can even pair this with a simple mantra when you water it. I honor my path even when it's not linear. The Monstera is not just a houseplant. It is a celebration of imperfection, a teacher of brave expansion, a reminder that even with holes, we are whole. Its presence in your home is not only visually grounding, it's energetically liberating. It says, grow your way, reach out, let yourself be seen, even in your unevenness. If you're someone who's ever felt behind, uncertain, or not quite there yet, the Monstera stands with you. Its message is simple but profound. You don't have to be perfect to grow, you just have to keep unfolding. 7. The parlor palm, harmony, quiet confidence, and the wealth of balance. The parlor palm doesn't demand attention. It doesn't tower, trail, or bloom. And yet, when placed in a room, something shifts. It's not dramatic, it's atmospheric. The air feels lighter, the space feels clearer, and you, without even trying, feel more at ease. This is the quiet power of balance. In mindfulness practice, we often speak of the middle path, avoiding extremes, cultivating equanimity, and walking gently between the noise of indulgence and the pressure of denial. The parlor palm lives this teaching without saying a word. It brings a gentle, grounding harmony to a space simply by being. Its long, feathery fronds extend upward with grace, never aggressive, never sagging. It stands steady and open, like a monk seated in meditation, composed, alert, peaceful. This is the energy of the parlor palm. It teaches us that wealth isn't only found in abundance. Sometimes wealth is found in balance. Let me tell you about Hannah, a mother of 3 and a freelance designer. Her days were a blend of deadlines, school pickups, meal prep, and moments of creative inspiration squeezed into the early mornings. She had a meditation app, she had read mindfulness books, but what she didn't have, until recently, was a moment of real peace. Her living room, though bright and warm, always felt busy, toys in one corner, laundry in another, and a laptop permanently stationed on the couch. One weekend, while visiting her aunt, she noticed a single parlor palm sitting quietly in the corner of the room. The space felt open and calm, like exhaling after a long breath you didn't know you were holding. Inspired, Hannah bought one and placed it next to her favorite reading chair. She didn't change anything else, not her schedule, not her workload, but every day she made it a point to sit near that palm, even if only for 5 minutes. Sometimes she'd close her eyes and breathe with it. Sometimes she'd just be still. Over time, she began to notice her own energy balancing. She wasn't less busy, but she felt less chaotic. And when asked why, she said simply, "That plant reminds me that I don't have to match the noise of the world." Balance isn't just something we feel, it's something we create. In Buddhist psychology, one of the key mental factors for liberation is samatha, tranquility of mind. It's not about dullness or lack of ambition. It's the spacious awareness that allows insight to arise. The parlor palm supports this energy in a physical, sensory way. It helps soften the edges of a room, both visually and energetically. It reminds us that wealth isn't only about expansion, it's about sustainability. It's about focus. It's about being able to return to center no matter how far we wander. For those juggling work, family, and spiritual practice, this plant serves as a visual cue. Breathe, pause. You don't have to do it all at once. In many ways, the parlor palm functions like a mindfulness bell, gentle, grounding, and calling you back to presence. The parlor palm thrives in indirect light and is remarkably adaptable, making it a beautiful addition to nearly any room. But energetically, it shines brightest in spaces that need harmony, places where energies collide like living rooms, shared offices, or multi-purpose corners. Consider placing one in a reading nook, beside your altar, or even in a hallway where you transition from work mode to rest. It can act as a buffer, softening the shift and inviting awareness into the present moment. In Feng Shui, northeast and southwest corners are associated with personal growth and relationships. But in mindfulness practice, the more essential question is, where do I most need balance? One practitioner I know places her parlor palm right at the border between her workspace and her rest space. She calls it her boundary plant. When she walks past it at the end of the day, she imagines her thoughts softening, her body unwinding, and her mind becoming clear. It's not a spell, it's a choice. The parlor palm doesn't push or pull, it simply is. And in that stillness, it teaches. Its soft fronds, steady bass, and elegant quietness remind us that we don't need to be loud to be powerful. We don't need to constantly produce to be valuable. We don't need to prove anything to be at peace. Sometimes true abundance comes not from adding more, but from subtracting the noise, from creating space where stillness can live, from allowing yourself to feel okay not because everything is done, but because you've allowed yourself to breathe. If your life feels overfull or energetically cluttered, consider welcoming a parlor palm into your space, not to solve the chaos, but to soften it, to help you remember, peace is possible, balance is available. Right now in this breath. 8. The apricot blossom. New beginnings, gentle awakening, and prosperity through hope. There is something inherently moving about watching a flower bloom, just as winter loosens its grip. Among the most beloved symbols of this seasonal miracle is the apricot blossom, especially in East Asian cultures, where it is honored as a harbinger of spring and prosperity. But the apricot blossom is more than a seasonal decoration. Spiritually, it represents new beginnings, tender transformation, and the faith that even after periods of cold stillness, life will stir again. In mindfulness practice, this aligns beautifully with the concept of impermanence, anicca. Everything passes, winter passes, fear passes, and in their place, something fresh unfolds. With their golden yellow petals glowing like soft sunlight, apricot blossoms appear just before fruit is born. Their timing is symbolic. You see the beauty before you taste the reward. You witness the bloom before you enjoy the harvest. This mirrors the spiritual path. Progress is not always tangible at first, but its signs are always blooming if we know how to look. Let me share with you the story of Mun, a retired teacher who had recently lost her husband. For months, her home felt heavy, full of silence and echoing with memories. Friends and family encouraged her to get out, but she wasn't ready. What she did instead was simple. She bought a potted apricot blossom tree from a New Year market, as she had every year before. She placed it by the living room window where the late winter sun would reach its petals. At first, nothing, just a few bare branches, but slowly, over several days, buds began to form. Then one morning, golden blossoms appeared, bright, delicate, defiant against the gray sky outside. Min told me later, it wasn't just the flower, it was the fact that something so small could open again, even after the cold. That blossom didn't erase her grief, but it offered something equally sacred, permission to begin again. In spiritual practice, we often forget how much strength is required to hope. In Buddhist teachings, hope isn't clinging to an outcome, it's trusting the process. Trusting that if you nurture the right causes and conditions, something beautiful will come of it, even if you don't know when. In many traditional cultures, it is believed that the number of petals on each flower corresponds to different kinds of wealth: peace, vitality, financial prosperity, family harmony, and health. Whether or not one believes in symbolism, the intention behind this tradition is powerful. It's a form of mindful aspiration, a ritual of directing your energy toward values that matter. In this way, the apricot blossom becomes an anchor for intentions. It asks you, what seeds will you plant this season? What in your life is ready to bloom again, gently and in its own time? As a seasonal plant, the apricot blossom thrives in bright, indirect light, near windows, balconies, or patios where it can feel the subtle warmth of the sun. Energetically, it's most powerful when placed in areas that feel stagnant, dim, or emotionally heavy. In your home, consider placing the apricot blossom where new energy is needed. A corner of your bedroom where you wake each morning, or a hallway that connects private and public spaces. One practitioner I spoke with keeps her blossom tree near her tea table as a reminder to stay present while sipping, watching, and waiting. Not for perfection, but for gentle awakening. If you observe Lunar New Year or the coming of spring as a personal renewal ritual, setting an apricot blossom near your altar or journal can deepen the symbolism. You may even write a few handwritten wishes or affirmations and tie them gently to the branches, a practice observed by many in Southeast Asia. Not to demand something from the universe, but to declare your openness to possibility. The apricot blossom whispers a gentle truth. You are allowed to begin again. Its soft petals arriving just before fruit mirror the inner work we often do in silence, before results are visible to the world. It reminds us that blooming doesn't have to be loud or showy. It can be private, it can be quiet, and it can be deeply sacred. If your life has recently gone through a winter, whether emotional, creative, or circumstantial, consider inviting the apricot blossom into your space. Let it serve as a daily reminder that beauty returns, that softness is strength, and that even when you feel dormant, something inside you is preparing to blossom again. 9. The peace lily. Rest, inner clarity is shown in the elegance of gentle energy, the healing presence of stillness. There are some plants that speak in whispers. The peace lily is one of them, with its deep green leaves and elegant white blooms, resembling a soft candle flame in still air. The peace lily doesn't clamor for attention. It rests, it holds space, and through its quiet presence, it gently realigns the energy of a room. In Buddhist teaching, clarity is not something we chase. It is something we uncover when the turbulence settles. When the muddy water is still, we can see to the bottom. The peace lily is that stillness made visible. It's a plant that transforms space not through color or complexity, but through simplicity. Its white bloom is often seen as a symbol of spiritual clarity, much like the color of a monk's robes or the white petals of the lotus. In the presence of a peace lily, the body tends to slow down, the breath softens, and the mind begins to settle. This is not magic. It's energetic resonance, and it's very real. I'd like to introduce you to Elena, a therapist who found herself nearing burnout. Between a growing caseload, family responsibilities, and her own internal fatigue, she felt like her home had become an extension of her workplace. Tense, cluttered, overstimulating. At the gentle insistence of her mentor, she created a small, sacred corner in her bedroom. A mat, a candle, a journal, and a peace lily. She didn't expect much. It was just a plant, after all. But over time, she began to sit near it more often. Before bed, in the quiet early morning, or after a difficult session. She noticed something subtle. When she watered the lily, it felt like she was watering herself. When a new white flower appeared, it felt like permission to breathe. She began to refer to the plant as her reset button. What Elena learned, and what the peace lily so beautifully teaches, is that peace isn't passive. It's active care. It's choosing to soften in a world that constantly demands hardness. From a symbolic and practical lens, the peace lily is associated with purification. Scientifically, it absorbs toxins and improves air quality. Energetically, it acts like a spiritual sieve, filtering emotional residue and creating a subtle field of calm. In Buddhist terms, this relates to the cleansing of the kailasas, mental defilements like greed, hatred, and delusion, not by suppression but by cultivation of mindfulness, compassion, and tranquility. The peace lily doesn't block negativity with force. It transforms it with stillness. It invites us to return to ourselves, gently, fully, and without drama. This is especially powerful in spaces where stress, decision fatigue, or overstimulation accumulates. A home office, a bedside table, a corner of the living room where technology and tension tend to gather. When placed mindfully, the peace lily becomes more than an object. It becomes a mirror of your intention to rest, to pause, and to reconnect. Where to place a peace lily? Creating inner retreat, the peace lily thrives in soft light and cooler environments, making it a beautiful companion in bedrooms, therapy rooms, meditation nooks, or transitional hallways. For those who struggle with insomnia or restless thoughts at night, placing a peace lily on a nightstand can create an emotional anchor for sleep. Unlike many plants, it continues to release oxygen at night, helping to improve air quality and support deeper rest. You may also consider placing it near a mirror or a reflective surface, amplifying its clean, clear energy. Or beside your bathtub as a symbol of release and quiet rebirth. One beautiful daily ritual. Before bed, sit quietly for 1 minute near your peace lily. Place your hand gently on the table or floor beside it. Inhale deeply. On the exhale, mentally release one worry from your day. You don't need to fix anything. Just let it go into the stillness. Let the plant hold it for you. The peace lily is more than a symbol of peace. It is a living container for it. In a culture that equates energy with noise and productivity, the peace lily reminds us that silence is not emptiness. It is fullness made soft. That stillness is not stagnation. It is clarity finding room to rise. It reminds us that we don't have to be on all the time. That it is not only okay to rest, it is essential. That beauty doesn't have to shout to be felt. That healing begins not when we force something to happen, but when we allow ourselves to breathe in what's already here. So if your life feels cluttered, mentally, emotionally, physically, the peace lily may be your next companion. Let it stand beside your rest. Let it bloom in the background of your becoming. Let it hold space for all the moments when words fall short and only stillness can speak. Are you ready to meet our final companion? Plant 10, the lucky bamboo. Intention, simplicity, and the grace of growing upward. The architecture of aligned growth among all the mindful plant companions we've explored, the lucky bamboo holds a special kind of reverence. With its slender, upright stalks and resilient nature, it is more than just a popular houseplant. It is a living metaphor for aligned, intentional growth. Not rushed, not wild, but deliberate, structured, and balanced. Though it resembles true bamboo, this plant actually belongs to the Dracaena family. Still, it carries with it the cultural and spiritual symbolism of strength, flexibility, and luck, especially in East and Southeast Asian traditions. But beyond the ideas of good fortune and prosperity, the lucky bamboo quietly teaches us something more profound. The way we grow matters just as much as how tall we become. Each stalk rises with elegant simplicity. No excess, no decoration, just direction, upward. In Buddhism, the middle path is not just a spiritual principle, it's a lived rhythm. Not too rigid, not too loose. The lucky bamboo embodies this through its form, rooted in water or earth, nourished by light, and always rising, calmly, with grace. Let's meet Ravi, a software developer who had recently begun exploring mindfulness after going through a period of emotional numbness. Meditation helped, but he often found himself returning to old patterns, overworking, endless scrolling, and disconnecting from the present moment. His teacher suggested a symbolic gesture. Choose one plant and let it represent his recommitment to awareness. He chose lucky bamboo for its simplicity, 3 stalks, placed in a clear glass vase on his kitchen counter. Every morning as he filled the vase with water, Ravi whispered a phrase, "Let me grow with direction." He didn't expect transformation, but the practice anchored him. Slowly, he noticed that his days felt more intentional. He wasn't rushing out the door as often. He paused between tasks. He started saying no with more clarity. He later said, "The plant didn't fix me, but it reminded me that I don't have to spiral outward. I can grow upward." This is the invitation of lucky bamboo to rise, not with pressure, but with poise, the spiritual geometry of numbers. In traditional feng shui and cultural practices, the number of bamboo stalks carries symbolic meanings. 1 stalk, simplicity and clarity of purpose. 3 stalks, happiness, longevity, and life balance. 5 stalks, harmony in all life areas, health, wealth, relationships, purpose, spirituality. 8 stalks, growth and prosperity, especially in career and material abundance. 9 stalks, great fortune, completion, and higher purpose. Rather than taking these numbers as superstition, we can reinterpret them as meditative symbols. intentional representations of the energy we wish to cultivate. For example, placing 5 stalks in your creative space could be your silent prayer for holistic balance. Or placing 3 stalks near your altar could remind you of the triple gem, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, as your anchors for mindful living. The lucky bamboo is extremely adaptable. It grows in water or soil, needs only gentle light, and thrives on consistency. But its placement should be intentional. Because it symbolizes vertical growth and personal direction, it's best placed in spaces where you plan, create, or begin new projects. A writing desk, a windowsill by your journal, a shared space where family or team energy needs clarity and flow. If you have a meditation space, placing a single stalk of bamboo beside your cushion can become a silent companion to your daily sitting. Let it grow alongside your practice. Some practitioners tie a red ribbon or place a small stone near the base, not for superstition, but as a symbol of life's supporting elements. Discipline, stone; energy, red; and presence, plant. These objects become visual mantras, simple reminders that you are supported. The lucky bamboo doesn't need much to thrive. A little water, a little light, a little care. But what it gives in return is something we all long for. A path, a shape, a reminder that steady growth is possible. It reminds us that direction is more important than speed, that inner alignment is more powerful than outer achievement, that luck is not a magical force bestowed upon the chosen few. It is the quiet result of living with intention, attention, and grace. So if you're looking for a companion to support you through change, commitment, or quiet transformation, the lucky bamboo is a beautiful place to start. Let it be a living thread between where you are and where you're becoming. And every time you water it, take a moment to ask, am I growing in the direction that feels true? If so, keep going. If not, adjust gently. There's no rush. After all, growth, the kind that matters, is always a practice, never closing reflection. When plants become our teachers. As we reach the end of this journey through 10 mindful plant companions, perhaps you're beginning to see that the plants around us are not just passive greenery. They are wise, patient teachers, reminding us of lessons we often forget in our fast-paced lives. The orchid teaches us about inner elegance and the quiet beauty of becoming. The ZZ plant reminds us that resilience grows slowly, in silence, without the need for praise. The lady palm creates sacred space with softness, a gentle guardian of stillness. The rubber tree grounds us in the wisdom of enough, anchoring our restless striving. The money plant reflects the flow of generosity and abundance when we let go of control. The Monstera celebrates bold expansion in the gift of imperfection. The parlor palm holds harmony gently, reminding us that true wealth begins in balance. The apricot blossom awakens hope after winter, a tender symbol of starting again. The peace lily purifies our space and our minds, offering calm in a noisy world. And the lucky bamboo grows not in haste, but with clarity and upward intention. Each of these plants speaks in a different voice, but they all echo one truth. When we care for them with presence, they return the favor. Not only by thriving, but by transforming us. They help us remember who we are when we slow down, breathe, and listen. Whether you live in a small apartment or a quiet home in the countryside, whether you're just beginning your mindfulness journey or deepening a long-time practice, there is a plant that can meet you right where you are and grow with you. Let your space become a living sanctuary. Let every leaf, every stem, every breath of green remind you that peace, abundance, and clarity are already available, here, now. And if this video has spoken to you in some way, if a certain plant called to your heart, or if you remembered something you'd forgotten in the rush of daily life, then I gently invite you, share this video with someone you care about. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your stories, your reflections, your own plant companions. And if you haven't already, subscribe to New Day Mindfulness for more teachings that connect spirit, space, and everyday presence. Thank you for spending this time here. May your home be a place of stillness and vitality. May your practice bloom gently. And may your heart, like these plants, continue to grow with softness, direction, and grace. See you in the next video. Until then, take care of your breath and your roots.